just blatant pandering over the years to minorities and their sort of weird coalition of really dissimilar interests they have. I think there's probably a lot of Democrats who are really scared about we can't criticize the first black president. They just they are so they have racial thinking so embedded into their psyche that they physically cannot bring themselves to criticize him.
Well, no, you can't, because anytime you criticize him on policy, you're a racist by definition. Just listen to the Chris Matthews show.
Well, but at the same time, I think that we have to look at what Chris Christie did. Okay, disclaimer, I absolutely loathe Chris Christie. I think he's worthless as a Republican. He governs like a Democrat. However, the man wins minority votes, period. And so I think we have to look at what he did. And basically what he did was when his opponent called him a racist, he said, "You're an effing idiot."
Yeah.
I mean, I think that we have to come out and say that. And the problem that Republicans keep having with Obama and with other minority candidates and the women too, basically everybody except white men, is that they don't say anything. Like Mitt thought he could win, after they said, well, Mitt Romney's going to outlaw birth control. He thought he could win by not talking about it. That's so stupid. Like,
yeah.
People just believe what they're told, man, especially people who are ignorant. I mean, like, I had a lady show up at the polls. Like, I was working the Virginia election this past couple of weeks ago, and I had this lady drive up. She's handicapped. This is an African-American woman. She's handicapped, can't get out of the van. And so the guy brings her out, or he goes inside to get her ballot. And I said, I'd love to talk to you about Ken Cuccinelli and why I believe he's the right person to vote for in Virginia and what he'll do for us and stuff. And she goes, "Oh, my neighbor told me to vote for Terry McAuliffe." And I was like, "Really? Well, can you tell me a little bit about why you're thinking about voting for him?" And she said, "Well, they told me that Ken Cuccinelli is a racist." And I said, "Well, that's stupid. He's not a racist." I said, "I've known Ken Cuccinelli for 8 years. He's the farthest thing from a racist." And so we talked a little bit, and basically, she's just believing what people tell her. All I had to do was stand there and talk to her for about 5 minutes. She wrote Ken Cuccinelli in, man. Like, it's not rocket science. All you have to do is engage these people. But Republicans act like they can win by not talking about it. Like, no, it hasn't worked.
The low-info voters don't watch anything news-wise, except maybe they might watch the network news that's on, and that's where they get their information.
Yeah, they don't watch the network news either. They don't. They watch YouTube and they watch Saturday Night Live.
I've been using the example recently that it's really okay. It's really when you come to the higher the profile, the office in the election, unfortunately, the least policy and your actual positions matter. It is all more on presentation and delivery. And I think that's why you could look at why Chris Christie is successful and why Ken Cuccinelli was not. Certainly, and I pointed out the one observation I made off of Cuccinelli's website that, the moment you have to have a heading on your website that's labeled sodomy, you've pretty much lost.
Yeah, oh gosh.
So the example that I've been using from history is from 1980, which I'm not old enough to remember. Keith is. We won't belabor that. But with Ronald Reagan, when he had his line of when your neighbor loses his job, it's a recession. When you lose yours, it's a depression. And when Jimmy Carter loses his, that's a recovery.
Yeah.
And really, after you deliver a line like that, whatever you say afterwards really doesn't matter because nobody's going to remember what you said. They're just going to remember the line.
Well, that's right.
So,
just when Tina Fey on Saturday Night Live was doing her Sarah Palin impression, saying, I can see Russia from my house," that got stuck on Sarah Palin forever.
And she didn't even say that.
She never said.
What she said.
Yeah, it's a Tina Fey quote, which is attributed to Sarah Palin.
That's right.
Yeah.
Exactly, Alan.
So, on a different topic, and I know I promised since you've got to go deal with your students early in the morning, Leah, I promised we could let you go about halfway through. If you want to stay, that's fine. But before we let you go, if you could just talk for a couple of minutes, I believe you spent several weeks or months this summer in Haiti, and I'd love to hear about that.
Yeah, I did. It's through an organization called Teen Missions International, teen as in teenagers. And basically, they take teenagers on 6 to 8 week trips all over the world. They go pretty much everywhere: Africa, Middle East, Asia, Europe, everywhere. And they take these kids on really physically, emotionally, spiritually difficult trips. And they really do huge, huge amounts of work. I mean, I can't even really put into words how fantastic this organization is. And I went to the inner city in Poland with them when I was a teenager, and now I've been going back and I've been helping to lead these trips for other kids. So this summer I went and spent 2 months in Haiti. It was sort of a last minute decision as far as something that big because I didn't decide I was going till April. Um, so yeah, basically we went down there. We were helping out this church in a little town called Wanamint, which is right on the border of the Dominican, and building an orphanage. We got to put the second floor on the orphanage. We got to start building them a security wall. In Haiti, a part of the reason that the wall is such a big deal, it sounds weird to be like, hey, we built a wall, but in Haiti, the people are so poor and there's this culture of stealing. And they don't even think about it. That's one of the first things, like kids learn to steal before they can learn to talk, honestly. And so it's just sort of the culture to have a 10 to 12 foot wall around your property to keep the thieves out, which sounds crazy to us, but there, that's just the way it is, you know? Like one night we had one light bulb and it was run on a generator. So we only ran it for about an hour a day. And we forgot to take the light bulb out one night because you turn the generator off, you put the generator inside your tent. Like we're sleeping in tents in the jungle in Haiti. And then you take the light bulb out, you put it in your tent, and that's how you keep it from getting stolen. Well, we forgot to take the light bulb out one night. We got up the next day and it was gone. Like that's the way it is. Like anything that's left out gets stolen there. And it was, we weren't in one of the parts of the country that was the worst hit by the earthquake. We were up in the northeast quadrant, but it's hard to describe. Like I didn't really understand it until I got there because we're not seeing like, rubble from damaged buildings. That's not what we saw there. But what we did see was kids who have scabies all over their bodies, which kind of looks like mold, to be honest. There's like these white scaly patches all over their bodies. And we saw kids who, have their bellies bloated because they have worms. And, we're seeing people just sit around all day because they have no work. They don't know how to work. Like there's a huge just cultural problem there. And the problem now is that they've gotten used to being given things. And I don't know if you've ever read the book When Helping Hurts, but basically the point of it is that sometimes giving things is the worst thing you can do to help people. And that's definitely what we're seeing in Haiti. Like they've gotten so used to being given things, they don't know how to work for a living. There's absolutely no concept of the nuclear family. Most couples who have children together aren't married. And there's so much government corruption. Like we were there for 2 months and didn't get any mail while we were there because anytime mail comes in from the U.S., there's only one government official in the town, and he's the justice of the peace, ironically. And he would open all the mail to see if there was money in it from the U.S. And when there wasn't, he'd just throw it out in the trash. So it's, I could talk about it for hours, but it's I guess I felt like we were doing something that was really worthwhile because we weren't just giving them stuff. We didn't just go down there and hand out blankets or something. Not that that's wrong. It's just that it doesn't really help long term.
Right.
What we were trying to do is build a home for these kids, and the orphanage administrator, basically they don't end up with like hundreds and hundreds of kids at this orphanage because he gets these kids adopted, which is nothing short of a miracle in Haiti because
Sure.
people can't even feed their own kids, much less somebody else's kids. He gets these kids adopted and actually placed in like real families with married parents and stuff. So, like that's the kind of thing that they really need down there. They don't need you to go give them food. They're making it just fine with rice and bananas. Trust me.
Well, it sounds like if you're going to go back, I'll send some light bulbs with you.
Yeah,
Um,
I know, right? Yeah, it's funny to try to describe it to people and go, yeah, we didn't really have electricity. And, one of my students asked me, well, how did you Instagram? I said I didn't take a cell phone.
yeah.
So,
Well,
yeah,
I just
it was
want to
crazy.
thank you for briefly relating what you did. It sounds like it was a very fantastic, I'm sure both emotionally and spiritually both difficult and rewarding experience. I'd love to hear more about it sometime.
Yeah, it was
And
good.
if you get the chance, and I'll try to remember to poke you about it. But if you could email me or DM me on Twitter the name of that organization, because I think it's
Sure.
one I probably want to add on to my list of charities to give to.
Yeah, awesome.
So, are we saying goodnight to you?
We are. I gotta
All
get up
right.
at 4:30 to go teach the children,
Well,
indoctrinate them.
and yes, and I thank you for making that sacrifice to be a public school teacher. I know it's a very difficult job at times because I see what my kids' teachers have to deal with in my children. So,
Well, you're very welcome. It's my favorite thing to do. I love being a teacher.
all right, Leah. Well, thank you so much for joining us, and we will have you back on sometime, hopefully in the not too distant future.
Thanks very much, Alan.
All right. Good night, Leah.
Good night.
Thanks, Leah.
See ya.
So, Keith, after I sort of planned on using that Leah's experience in Haiti as kind of a segue to the situation in the Philippines,
Well, the
and if
Philippines is not Haiti. It's a far bit more better off place than Haiti. Haiti is the poorest country in North America. By far
absolutely.
it is. Well, Venezuela is trying to catch up to them. But the Philippines is definitely a poor country. It's third world, but they do have some infrastructure. People do work there, and it sort of works to a fashion. It's also a democratic country.
Sure,
It's
and
got
it was more not so much comparing the countries, but the need for relief in the wake of Typhoon Haiyan. And I know that you have family there, your wife's relatives, and you've spent time there. And I think you said that you own some property there as well. And I was just sort of wondering if you had an insider update on relief efforts there in the Philippines.
well, my property is on Leyte, so God knows what's up with that right now. I never had a permanent building on there, so and there were some squatters living there. I'm assuming the squatters got washed away, but I have no idea what's up with the property. The Central Visayas really got decimated, and the city of Tacloban was destroyed. This is not an insignificant sized city. It's got 225,000 people, and trying to do disaster relief and something like that in a country that doesn't necessarily have the greatest infrastructure in the world, or the best way to get things set up after a huge natural disaster is, it's going to take them some time. They're finally starting to get some electricity back on. It took a while, even before the Marines could bring in their C-130s in there and start distributing stuff. But it goes way beyond Tacloban. That seems to be the focus of the media, and it probably should be, because that was the worst hit place. But just about 2 hours down the road from there on Leyte is the city of Ormoc, and that's not an insignificant city either.